Hey there. If you love the tales of tasty tunes, then welcome to the YouTube edition of Hit Story. I'm Tim Tamashiro. On this edition, Aretha Franklin powerfully changes a song from he to she. This is the hit story of Respect.
You're listening to Hit Story with Tim Tamashiro.
Hi there. Welcome to Hit Story, the podcast that tells the tales of tasty tunes. The goal of this podcast is to give you context for the songs that you already love, and hopefully the songs will become even more meaningful to you. I'm your host, Tim Tamashiro. This edition of Hit Story is all about a song written by a man for a man to sing. But when a young woman decided to sing it her way, she changed the song into an anthem for women everywhere. This is the hit story of Respect. Everyone wants to be respected. Otis Redding. Early in January 1967, Aretha Franklin heard a knock on her apartment door. She had been expecting that knock because she and her sister Carolyn had made arrangements to get together that day. Aretha was living in a small apartment in Detroit, Michigan. Carolyn came over to work with Aretha on some songs. One of those songs on the list was a tune written by a friend of Aretha's named Otis Redding. In fact, it was a hit song for Otis that made it all the way to number one on the Billboard R&B charts just a few years earlier. Interesting fact, R&B means rhythm and blues, which is a phrase coined by a music producer named Jerry Wexler. Jerry just happened to be the new head of Atlantic Records, Aretha's new record label. It was Jerry who suggested that Aretha do her own version of Otis's hit song. The name of that song was Respect. That afternoon, Aretha and her sister sat around the small piano that was pushed up against a window that looked outside. They worked on ideas that would make their version of Respect unique. They understood that Otis Redding's version of the song was coming from a man's point of view. The man was asking for respect. He would do anything for the woman in his life in that song, but he was asking for a deal. He provides. All she would have to do is give him esteem. It was as if the male version of respect came from a place of weakness. As Aretha played piano and sang the verses of Respect, there was a noticeable change in the meaning of the song. When Aretha belted out the song, it came with more authority. She sang the song not as one woman, but as all women, calling out for equal rights and a lot more respect in all things. When Aretha sang Respect, it was because it was time. As the sisters sang and jostled about, Carolyn came up with a phrase that fit the song in a sublime way. It was a background vocal, and the phrase was, "Sock it to me." For the last year or so, "sock it to me" had been floating around the African-American lexicon. It meant, give it to me. But "sock it to me" really seemed like the perfect phrase to justify a demand of respect of the highest order. 1967 was a time of women's liberation. The idea of equal rights for all women was at a fevered pitch, and rightfully so. If there was ever a time for a song that spoke to the hearts and minds of 50% of the population, this was it. Aretha and Carolyn Franklin came up with more than just "sock it to me" to bolster their version of Respect. They also came up with other phrases to include in that song. Each phrase strengthened the song like additional layers of folded steel. The Franklin sisters would include background lyrics like "just a little bit," repeated multiple times, almost in a sarcastic tone. Aretha added one more word in the first verse. It was an important one. The word is Mr., not as a term of address, but as a way to put men in their place, to pull them down from their pedestals. Aretha Franklin is a 25-year-old young woman who knows what she wants in life. She wants proper respect, not because she demands it, not because she asks for it, but because it's reciprocal. You give respect, and you get respect. That's what propers are all about. Aretha comes up with one more amazing twist to the Franklin sisters' version of respect. It's a breakdown for the song. It's a simple little idea that works out perfectly. Just spell out the word respect, one letter at a time. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Found out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T. Take care. T-C-B. In other words, TCB means take care of business. With each new layer of perspective came a more vibrant call for equality. Respect went from being the title of a song to a realization of the times. They were a-changin', and about damn time. Let's get this song recorded now and tell the rest of the world, Aretha said. I hope you're enjoying the hit story of Respect. I'm Tim Tamashiro. Now, if you're wondering, why isn't the original music for Respect included in this podcast? And that's a really good question. There's one main reason. It's copyright laws. I don't want to infringe on anyone's copyright, but I do want to tell you these great stories. When you listen, hopefully these stories will transport you back to a time before the songs even existed, so they can be born again. Then, if you really want a thrill, go dig up a copy of this song right after this podcast is done and give that song a listen. You will be amazed at how this song will sound bigger and brighter and more meaningful than ever before. You'll have a hit story hallelujah. Thank you for listening to Hit Story, and now the rest of the tale about when Aretha Franklin goes into the recording studio to record Respect. On Valentine's Day, Aretha Franklin arrived at a New York City recording studio to record Respect. Little did anybody know that one of the greatest recordings of all time would be made that day. The studio musicians had been flown in from Muscle Shoals, Alabama. Just a few weeks earlier, Aretha had been in Muscle Shoals to record a few other songs with these musicians. A drunken skirmish between Aretha's husband and one of the other musicians had resulted in those sessions coming to an abrupt halt. Needless to say, the musician nor Aretha's husband was at the session. The engineer at the studio asked what the name of the song was that they were about to record. Aretha told him, "It's called Respect." A sly grin streaked across the engineer's face. He said, "I know that song. I recorded it with Otis Redding about 3 years ago." Producer Jerry Wexler and a few other musicians were off in a corner talking about an arrangement for the song. Somebody suggested that the song could benefit from a short bridge, to break up the monotony of verse after verse. So they decided to reuse a bridge they recorded just the day before. They borrowed the bridge from Sam and Dave's song, "When Something's Wrong with My Baby." And then they took the new bridge for a test drive with the rest of the song. It worked out like a charm, and it gave this new edition of Respect a soulful break before ramping up the song for its big finale. Saxophonist Charlie Chalmers was assigned a solo during that bridge. His mission was to wail like a parishioner in a Baptist church on a Sunday morning. Imagine what it looked like inside the recording studio that day. Aretha Franklin sitting confidently at a scratched-up old grand piano. The Muscle Shoals musicians perched on fold-up chairs around the walls of the room. the Franklin sisters looking lovely and poised to sing using their shared microphone, and 3 horn players kibitzing in the corner, patiently waiting for the song to be counted in. When they were counted in, the horns were the first sounds played. They laid down a thick bed of greasy soul to support the upcoming twang of the electric guitar. The guitarist bent the strings like a harmonica player bends a blue note. Aretha pounded on the piano just like she used to at church every Sunday. The bass flowed like the soulful heartbeat of the Mississippi River, and there comes the Franklin sisters with their first oohs as background singers. When Aretha sings her first line, it's as if a lioness has been let loose from her cage. She belts out the lyrics powerfully and more forcefully than any song she's ever sang. What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. Young Aretha Franklin is owning this song already. She's snatched it from the hands of Otis Redding as if he was casually walking down a hallway with a copy of the music in his hands. This band is so tight. They have just enough wiggle to make things interesting, though. They're 3 verses ahead, and they're leading up to the saxophone solo. Charlie Chalmers had the solo assigned to him just a few minutes before, but at the very last second, King Crimson, the other sax man on the session, pushes his elbow towards Chalmers. He lifts his saxophone up to the mic, and he steals the solo. Crimson just felt compelled, as if God himself pushed him forward to blow, and he played his ass off for the next 8 bars. Charlie Chalmers didn't seem to mind at all. Crimson, he figured, was the right man for the job. Now here comes Aretha again. She sings about how her man's kisses are sweeter than honey, but guess what? So is her money. As Aretha continues to wail, the Franklin sisters have something really cool up their sleeves. They continue to sing their swooping oohs, but leading up to the next session, the Franklin girls begin to sing Aretha's nickname in the song. They sing respect just a little bit. They've added even more folded steel to strengthen that song. And now here comes the breakdown. In music terms, everybody in the band is headed to stop time. It's where everybody in the band stops playing on a pre-designated beat, leaving only one musician playing. Aretha will be the only one to sing. She wails out her brilliant spelling break. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, found out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, take care, T-C-B. The studio musicians jump in like a synchronized diving team, pouncing on the first beat. They're ready to take the rest of the song home. In comes the Franklin girls, one last time with their incredible last layers of wow. It's sock it to me time. And in just 2 minutes and 29 seconds, Aretha Franklin and this group of musicians recorded a song that would change not just her life, but the lives of millions. When Atlantic Records released Respect, it shot all the way to number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart. It tied the position of Otis Redding's version that he earned on his version of Respect. But Aretha's version also went to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart. It was a crossover smash. It even went to the top 10 in the United Kingdom. Aretha Franklin's first hit song made her an international superstar. As expected, the song did become an anthem for women all over the world. Other good causes began to see Respect as a worthy song for their work too. For example, the civil rights movement. All in all, Aretha Franklin's Respect became a powerhouse of a song. In 2002, the Library of Congress added her version of Respect to the National Recording Registry. When asked why she thought Respect had become such a beloved song, Aretha Franklin answered with something familiar. She quoted her friend Otis Redding. because everybody wants to be respected. Thank you so much for listening to Hit Story. If you enjoyed yourself, you can subscribe to the podcast and get a new edition of Hit Story every Saturday. Make sure to check out other Hit Story shows too. There are several available for you now. Songs like Your Song, Smoke on the Water, and Born to Run, to name just a few. Right now, go dig up a copy of Respect and listen to it with fresh perspective. It will sound bigger, more clear, and more meaningful than ever before. Go and have your Hit Story Hallelujah. If you're passionate about this podcast, you can become a patron of Hit Story by offering a small financial stipend on my Patreon page. The link for that is in the description. If you love Hit Story, please support it. Thank you for checking out my podcast. I'm Tim Tamashiro. Don't go changing.